Today we are talking about the song Cynthia Come to Me in our series on the album Tragic Comic because Greg Amici is going to come to our community for an interview on June 30th. And before that, we want to find out how he actually writes his songs. Welcome to the show of Story First Songwriting. I'm Melanie Naumann, your host, and I've broken down over 1,000 song lyrics in great detail with over 90 different criteria that I'm looking at in each song lyric to find out the patterns of what they have in common that makes them successful, what makes a great song good, and what makes a song that didn't stand the test of time, what could have been improved. So I'm always looking at lyrics through the lens of story-first songwriting to explore how we can write songs that truly hook our audience, that make them engaged so they want to listen all the way through, and also songs that deliver a meaningful takeaway. And right now, we are going through Greg Amici's album Tragic Comic because on June 30th, 2026, we have him in our school community for an interview. And you know, the way that I have started analyzing song lyrics is by taking them through a huge spreadsheet to understand the patterns of what made some songs or albums successful while others just faded away. And so I have a huge list of criteria or lots of things that I'm tracking to understand the craft of the content of the song lyrics. And you can see it right here. This is, for example, a spreadsheet that I have done for a discography analysis of all the albums from Green Day. So I took them all apart, and I have also done this with songs from Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift and Placebo and Westlife and many more. And one of the first things that I do, and now I have done it also with Greg Amici's album Tragic Comic, taking it through my spreadsheet. And when we zoom in, then you can see the very first thing that I actually do is I'm looking at the first line of the song, I'm determining if it actually hooks us, and I'm also going to compare to the last line of the song. And I just look at those two things because the gap between where a song starts and where it ends tells me whether anything actually happened in between or if it just stays the same. Because after all, I'm focusing on story-first songwriting, and a story always requires change. So we want to see if actually something changes between the first line and the last one. And when I started reading the lyrics of Cynthia Come to Me, then it started with, gotta need to reveal a confessional fetish, and it ended with, or at least until I've got a pee. And I thought, oh, there's a song with the word pee in it. Now that's gonna be interesting. I had no idea what I was up for. And before that, like when I looked at the song Pumpkin Man, like when we did the analysis of that track, then he said, just the other day I said, I'd rather kiss the dead. And the ending was, now I'm back with you. So this actually tells us, now I'm back with you, that something happened in between that actually led him from rather kissing the dead to being back together with someone. So it promised a story. It promised that there's something that causes that change. But when we look at Cynthia Come to Me, then we are just confused about like, how are you going to possibly end up at peeing? So this is the question that we are going to focus on in this training. But of course, it's not all about peeing, but there's actually something more that this song actually does. And the main thing that I want you to take away from today's training is that this song actually makes a craft mistake that can truly mess with your songwriting and with the way how your listener is going to perceive your song. And the reason that I'm picking on this is pretty simple. Because once you can see this, then I hope that you can catch it in your own writing before it's going to wreck your own song. So the mistake is this, what you can see right here. The song spans its entire opening, wanting you to root for one specific character. But then it quietly turns that same character into the one you don't want to root for any longer. You're going to feel repelled towards that person. So the person you came in caring about becomes the person who you don't want to care about any longer. And if that happens, the listener will distance themselves from the song's main character, but also from your song. And we don't want that to happen. So the next time you see it in your own writing or when you're writing with someone, that you can point it out to them before they start recording the song. But first of all, like, why does it actually matter? Because a listener doesn't bond with a name or a face. They bond with whoever is carrying the weight of the problem, whoever is struggling with something. It's the same as in a movie. You root for whoever is up against it and fighting back. So the second that character flips, then your loyalty has nowhere to go. So you're not rooting for someone anymore. You are just watching a guy who starts begging. And nobody leans into a song to watch someone beg. So today we'll look at exactly where the song Cynthia Come to Me makes a big mistake, why it really hurts, and how you stop it from happening in your own song. And this song is really worth studying because Greg Amici, the songwriter, he's also doing something very, very well. And this is also worth pointing out. So we're going to give him full credit as we go. And you know, the reason why I'm breaking down songs like this is because we want to find out what makes a song or an album successful. And does the power of the lyrics actually have an impact on the success of that song or album? And all the data that I can collect in this spreadsheet, it's helping me understand how powerful one album or one song actually is. And when we look at Green Day, the gray background is the sales and streaming numbers. So you can see that Dookie was their best-selling album, and it's followed by American Idiot. Now, when we look at the album's power, the average of the lyrics power of each album, then this is the blue line. And you can see we start here with Smooth, it starts here, then we move to Kerplunk, it has more sales, and also the lyrics were a lot better. Then we get to Dookie, and the lyrics were massively better. So that led to more sales. And with Insomniac, the lyrics power dropped, and so did the sales. Then with Nimrod and Warning, we were kind of staying the same. And then we lead up back to American Idiot, where the songs were a lot stronger again. And then you can also see that since 21st Century Breakdown, Green Day has never been the same again. They have done a lot of shifts in how they write their song and how they approach their songs. So you can see the sales and streaming numbers have gone down significantly, but also the power of their lyrics. And this is what you can actually see. When we look at the first 7 albums, they had an average lyric power of 55%, and this led to over 73 millions of sales. Now, when you look at the last 6, then them together, they only had 10 millions in sales and an album power of only 36%. And right up here, you can see this dark purple line is the average of those 7 albums. And it's above what the audience expects from Green Day, which is this orange background. And the other albums, the other 6, they are below the expectations. So they didn't sell as well. So you can see, analyzing song lyrics, breaking them down into their different components. And at the moment, I'm studying like over 90 different criteria to understand the power of the song lyrics. You can see that it truly matters for the success of an album, for the success of a music artist. And I'm not saying that the music does not count, but when you are at a stage like Green Day, or even a national music artist, then people just expect that the music is good, that it all fits together, that the lyric form and structure also fits to the music, that it all makes sense. But then, in the end, it comes down to what are you actually saying in your songs? And you can see here, and also here, how much of a difference it makes what your song lyrics are actually about. So before we start breaking down the song lyrics of Cynthia, Come to Me, I want us to get 2 terms straight first, because what we're going to cover depends on knowing who is who, and most people use the following terms wrong. So let's talk about antagonism and protagonism. Antagonism, that's the force that puts pressure onto the protagonist. It's the person who wants something from the protagonist. So antagonist does not mean villain, and it doesn't mean the bad guy. It's just the one who puts pressure onto the protagonist. And protagonism, that is the force that is going to resist that pressure. So protagonist doesn't mean it's the hero. And it's also not automatically the person who sings the song or the first person character. So the antagonist always wants something from the protagonist, and the protagonist pushes back because they don't want to do what the antagonist wants them to do. But the antagonist is the one who's going to create the initial disturbance because of what they want from the protagonist. So the antagonist is going to upset the protagonist's world. This is how it works. So when we go to Greg Amici's website to lyrics and we look at the song lyrics of Cynthia, Come to Me, then we can see that all of this is there to let the audience bond with the song's first-person character. And we bond with him because he faces a problem. He has lost his appeal. He's not feeling too mannish. So that first-person character is the one who's facing a problem. He's kind of like, he's saying, when I speak words of love, it's like bad high school Spanish. How can I keep it real when my girlfriends all vanish? So he's kind of facing the same problem as the guy in the song I'm a Believer by the Monkees. Love keeps blowing up on him, a breakup after a breakup, and now he has to deal with it. So now we are bonding with that person because we see he's struggling with something, and we wonder, how is he gonna solve that problem? Will he find a way how to solve it? We are rooting for him because we might connect with him because we are in a similar place in life. And so we are looking up at him, hoping that he can find a way that's going to inform how we can solve this problem. So when you hand your listener a problem like this early on in your song, then they're going to line up behind that person who's facing that problem. So we know right here that this is going to be our song's protagonist because the antagonistic forces are those girlfriends who all vanished. And here's the thing that the song does really well. The conflict that we need for a story to work is in here. They both have opposing wants. He wants sex. She wants not to be a booty call. And so that's like a real conflict here. So there's no confusion about what the characters want. You can even see it in the lyric. If she responds with, dude, you've got balls, but I don't do booty calls, then in that line itself, you already know that he wanted to have sex with her and she's not up for that. So what the characters want is crystal clear. And then comes the line that messes completely with who we perceived our protagonist to be. Because we get the line, as I already said, dude, you've got balls, but I don't do booty calls. That's what she said. So she is actually delivering the turning point. A turning point is defined as the refusal of the protagonist to do what the antagonist wants them to do. And we have stated a clear refusal here, but it's coming from her. It's not him who's doing the refusal, she is. So now we think, okay, if she is refusing, then is she the protagonist? And if we continue going on through the lyrics, then we see how he continues to put pressure onto her. Cynthia, come to me. Cynthia, come to me. And with those two things, the turning point belonging to her and him applying pressure, who we believe the protagonist to be has completely changed now. And it's going to confuse us because we were rooting for him and now suddenly he's the antagonist, being the one who applies pressure. And the thing that he wants, having sex with that person, and the way how he describes her, this very unsympathetic way, then if we had rooted for him before, we are not doing that anymore, because we are starting to dislike this guy. But this song has already spanned so many lines, turning him into the protagonist, creating an emotional connection with him through the problem that he's faced. And now suddenly he turns into the antagonist because he is also the one who's working this hag down the hall. So he approached her because he wants sex from her. So he turned into the antagonist. So this line here, just last night I was working this hag down the hall, this is the one that turns him into the antagonist. And now Cynthia is the one who's the protagonist, who has to deal with that dude who approaches her and wants something from her and applies pressure onto her and who starts begging and begging that she comes to him. So the problem is truly the timing, by having included so many lines to establish him as the protagonist and then not following up on this. So as a listener, you're now standing behind a guy that you don't want to stand behind anymore. And Cynthia is also repelled by this guy. She's clearly calling him out and refusing. She is delivering the turning point. But now, Cynthia, since she has suddenly become the protagonist, it feels like she is denying us now. She is calling us, dude, you've got balls, but I don't do booty calls. We didn't even want that. But because we bonded with the first protagonist, now we are getting that rejection. And it doesn't feel good. Actually, we should have bonded with Cynthia, who is approached by this dude who's working her, clearly only interested in one thing. So what does this do to our guy? So now that she is refusing, what does this actually do to our former protagonist? Well, he doubles down. He starts begging. He hands his whole fate to her and just waits. So he's not solving his own problem now. He's asking her to solve it for him. He gave up his own power. He's leaning on her to fix how he feels about himself. And here's the rough part. He turns into the exact thing he told us that he cannot stand. So he told us he doesn't like girls who whine, girls who cry. But now look at him. Cynthia, come to me. Cynthia, come to me. Like, he is the one who's begging. And you can also see how desperate he actually is. Like, he's even stating that feeling. If I'm desperate, I shoot for the low-hanging fruit. And you see him working this hag down the hall. So you know that he is desperate because he's going for the low-hanging fruit. So now we are stuck riding along with that guy who won't lift a finger for himself and just whines at a woman to come save his ego. So this is nothing fun to sit through. Nothing where we still want to root for him. We are actually rooting for Cynthia now to kick this guy out, to get rid of this guy. And here's something more specific if you are already more advanced in story-first songwriting. Because there's a second mistake that happens right after the turning point. Because when we look at how a story works, then we have 5 story moments that are in a specific order. We have the inciting incident, then the turning point, which is the refusal of the protagonist. Then we have the crises the protagonist faces, then the climax, which is their decision, and then we have the resolution. And we only have progressive complications, the things that add pressure. We only have those between the inciting incident and the turning point. Because after the inciting incident, when the antagonist disturbs the protagonist's world because they want something from them, the protagonist first denies, or they are trying to evade the situation. But the antagonist is going to build up pressure, and those progressive complications are there to build up that pressure until we get to the turning point where the protagonist draws a line in the sand and refuses. And then you can't add more progressive complications. The protagonist has already refused. So what only follows is the crisis, the climax, and the resolution. But when we look at this song, Cynthia, Come to Me, then we had a huge setup with where we started to bond with that guy and the problem that he was facing. And there was an inciting incident because all his girlfriends vanished. And then where the pressure belongs are in rising complications. But we didn't really find those regarding his life. But we get to a clear turning point with her saying, I don't do booty calls. But then he turns into begging and applying pressure. So when we look at the song, this is all establishing him as the protagonist. we have the inciting incident with all the girls vanishing, and then she's delivering the turning point. After this, she should be pushed into a crisis. And we do kind of have this when he says, Cynthia, come to me. But there's something that's missing, what I'm going to be talking about in just a second. But what actually happens right here, and you see how much it actually is that he's applying pressure onto her. He wants to, as he even states here, he wants to make love to her. So he wants to have sex with her, right? So all those progressive complications, they show up after the turning point. Doesn't make sense there anymore because she has already refused. So the order is backwards. She already said no. The turning point already happened. And then he keeps begging and begging and begging and begging. So it builds up towards nothing. It just makes him look even more desperate. And it tells us something that we already figured out. Dude, she said no, so stop begging. And the third issue that we find in the lyrics is the crisis is super weak because there isn't really one. A crisis is, in story-first songwriting, a real choice with a cost. There has to be an or else. Do this or else. There has to be a stated consequence. There must be a real cost for Cynthia if she truly means to say no and refuse him. But what does actually happen to Cynthia if she doesn't come, right? Nothing. The song never states that. The song's antagonist, the first-person character, never states a consequence. So she is never backed into a corner. So she has no hard choice to make. And when there is no hard choice to make, then there is no real decision, no climax, nothing that turns, nothing that settles. She doesn't feel the pressure. And because she doesn't, neither do we as the listener. So when we look at what works in this song, then of course we have a clear fight because we have those two opposing wants that create a very clear conflict. He wants sex and she doesn't want to be a booty call. And the turning point is also crafted very well in itself because it's a clean and sharp no. We truly understand that refusal that she's not going to have sex with him. But this is also the place where the entire song falls apart. So the guy that we bonded with, he's becoming the antagonist. And then we do have progressive complications that build up pressure, but they arrive too late. They arrive after the turning point, and that's the place where they don't matter anymore. So it just reads as desperate, but it's not helping the antagonist to make his case. And also the crisis has no cost attached to it. So nothing is ever on the line for Cynthia. So why should she care about this guy? She refused him and that's it. And he just remains there begging and begging and begging. So now that we have gone through this, here's how you can apply it in your own songwriting. So there are 3 checks and either you pass them or you don't. So first thing that you can check in your song lyrics, find the character that your listener bonds with in your opening. Who is the protagonist? Who is the one facing the problem? And then jump to the end of your song and ask one thing. Does your protagonist remain the protagonist throughout the song? Is that the person who faced an unexpected event that they suddenly had to deal with? They refused to do what someone wanted them to do. Because of that, they faced a crisis and they had to make a choice about that. Do you have this character? Is that character consistent in your song? If you handed the pushback off to somebody else partway through the song, then you have mixed your protagonist and antagonist. So fix that. The second thing that you can look out for, find the turning point. The moment a character refuses. The moment somebody turns the other person down and truly means it. And then look hard at what comes right after it. If your character then keeps pushing the same way that they were pushing before, then this refusal is in the wrong place. The refusal always marks the end of those progressive complications, and it's only followed by the crisis moment in your song, where someone faces a choice. And you have to look at the lyrics, at everything that you've written, and you have to know what happens if that person chooses one way or the other way. What are going to be the consequences? If the answer is nothing, nothing will happen, they don't have to pay a price for anything, then you don't have a crisis in the song. And if you don't have a crisis in the song, then there is no story in the song. The crisis decides if it's actually a story song.
Thank you so much for listening. When you enjoyed the show, there's a lot more going on inside our community of story-first songwriters on School. You can share your own song lyrics. You can follow along what other songwriters do. You get trainings, feedback, and a great community who all support each other. And to join us, just click the link in the description below. We are looking forward to having you.